Hello, everybody. This is Joshua Hatton with One Nation Under Whiskey podcast. I'm joined today, and as always, by Mr. Raspy Voice himself, the dear Jason Neil Patrick Karras. Wait, what's your name? Jason Neil Patrick Karras Johnston Yellen.
Yes, thank you. Lovely to be here. Cheers.
Oh, you don't sound as raspy as you did.
Yeah, because I hadn't spoken to anybody when you and I first came on the call. It'll happen, don't you worry. Oh, when I get a little lower, a little slower.
Yeah, I want you to
start to
lean
fall
into
apart.
it, you know?
But yeah, if I try to keep my voice up here, it's all going to be tickety-boo. Lovely to see you and to see the other person.
That's right.
But I will say nothing because I'm not in charge of introductions, so I will return to sitting quietly in my chair.
We have the one and only, the inimitable Jessica Rabbit Lomas. Hey, Jess.
Hey. I really wanted you to start singing I Am the One and Only. I was waiting for that. I've got my hands up ready. Not that the listeners can see this.
I don't know that song. Do I not know that song? What is that?
What do you mean you don't know I Am the One and Only?
Is that an R. Kelly song? We're not allowed to sing his songs anymore.
There's at least 3 people listening to this podcast who are like, what do you mean?
I know this song. Who's the artist? Oh,
here it is.
Stumped.
She searches the Google machine.
Millennial reaching for her phone.
My
Ask
brain's
Jeeves,
just...
Jess.
Is it not Rick Astley? No, it's not.
I am the one and only. You can't take that away from me.
It's Chesney Hawkes. Why did my brain fail there?
Chesney Hawkes.
As I was saying Rick Astley, I could see Chesney Hawkes singing this.
Who's Chesney Hawkes?
Well, the fact that my brain failed has totally ruined this, so quick.
The fact that we're 2 minutes into this and we've got a Chesney Hawkes reference.
I don't think he's famous for anything else, though. I think that is the only song.
Is he like a country singer or something? Like with a name like Chesney Hawkes, you have to sing nothing but country. Did his wife leave him? Did he lose his job?
No, I was trying to rickrollers. That's where my brain was going. Anyway, that's my entire pop culture references I can provide for you today. You're welcome.
So, Jess, you do remain the one and only.
Thanks.
They cannot take that away from you.
They cannot.
They can't take that away. I made a realization the other day, Jess. So every morning, Haida throws on Taylor Swift for her morning get ready regimen.
I strongly approve.
It's Tay all morning. And I realized she's born in 1989 just like you.
Hence the 1989 album.
Exactly.
Shit, that's a pop reference. That's a pop reference that I gave you.
Yeah.
Tell you what else I'm really into.
Chesney
Hawkes.
Man.
See, once we've finished this podcast recording and you go away and listen, you'll be like, yeah, I do know that song. So the 3 people that are very annoyed by this reference are singing it at you right now.
I want to know how many people were screaming the name Chesney Hawkes.
Yeah, as I replaced it with Rick Astley.
Fumbling in the dark for that name, yeah. And you tried to rickroll us.
Chesney fucking Hawkes.
That's how all 3 of them speak. Yeah.
Some people are currently on the 3rd verse of that song while we're talking.
I find it hard to believe there are 3 verses of that song.
Does he follow that up with like "Don't try that in a small town"? This is not that same guy, is he?
No.
Okay.
I really think Chesney Hawkes is a one-hit wonder. Write in to questions at One Nation Under Whiskey. With your TikTok videos of you singing Chesney Hawkes with your arms in the air like I was ready to do.
I love the fact that even though we're only on audio, you really do put your hands in the air each time.
It's a compulsion.
Method.
You can't do the I am the one and only with your arms down. So those of you who are listening to this and driving, put your hands back on the steering wheel, please. Yeah. If you're on a bus, I hope you didn't punch the person next to you as you went.
Unless you're on a Glasgow bus, and then that's part of the experience.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
Even then.
Yeah.
A little self-defense.
If you get off a Glasgow bus and you haven't been punched or you haven't punched, you've failed. Failed the episode.
You're probably in Edinburgh.
A Glasgow punch.
Glasgow.
Yeah, you're probably in Edinburgh. So listen, you both may have noticed the same thing that our listeners have noticed, and that there's no special guest shown on the masthead for this particular episode. We're recording an episode where the focus is on the three of us talking about what our 4th month in as a company under the Artisanal Spirits banner looks like. Mm-hmm. You know, Jason, you've been around bits and bobs of the country. Jess, I know you went to Germany and have done a few other things around the UK. I imagine you've received some questions. We continue to receive some questions. So I thought this would be a good idea for us to bring up those questions and answer them, because I imagine there's a number of listeners out there who have had some of these questions of, you know, what does it mean that you guys are now owned by ASC, or who's ASC? I thought it was Scotch Malt Whisky Society that purchased you. Those things and many other things we can correct, dispel, answer, etc.
Yeah, I'll say what was nice about being in the Bay Area last week. I was doing tastings in San Francisco. I was also doing tastings in Berkeley. I had some real fun visits. And as always, with the very dear nation, is people led with congratulations.
Yeah.
And people led with, I'm sure it's been a lot of hard work to get to this point, and I hope this felt like a suitable reward. And I always love it when that's the lead. Did they have follow-ups from that lead? Yes, absolutely. Of course they did. But the fact that they could lead with congratulations was very, very nice and very much appreciated. There is definitely there's an understanding that we're a sister brand with SMWS, even if it's not entirely clear to people who owns SMWS.
Yeah.
Or exactly who that 3-letter acronym is that we always refer to as our new corporate partner. You know, and so that's an element of it where I'm saying that the part for me, and I was just listening carefully in your lead up to the question here, is we say ASC so much internally that when I'm at a tasting and I want to give them their proper Sunday name, I always have to run it through my head first to get out of ASC into Artisanal Spirits Company. And then I'm like, okay, I think I've got it now. And then immediately I go back to saying ASC through the rest of that.
Yeah, sure.
Anytime I make references back to ASC. But I would say the big one, and then, you know, Jess, I won't take all the questions. I'd like to hear what you're hearing as well. But I did get one of the popular questions last week. A few pours into a tasting on Friday. And you could see the person kind of gearing themselves up, here comes the question. Here it is. I hope Jason's ready, because I've been waiting to ask this. And he gave me the good old, what happens if you, Single Cask Nation, and they, Scotch Malt Whisky Society, want to select the same cask?
I love that you got asked the same question that I've been asked, and I imagine Jess has been asked the same question that you.
Yeah, I quite enjoy that each of us have received this from somebody I assume was very proud of their original thought.
Absolutely.
Is,
finally, this person is standing in front of me, and I can ask them to their face. Who wins in a fight between SCN and SMWS?
And I hope you went fully into detail explaining the Thunderdome setup, the wrestling outfits, the thumb war training that we do internally, jousting. I've started telling people we joust, so I just think it's got a bit of a more interesting vibe to it.
Yeah, I've acquired a medieval mace. And I carry that into all cask selections within the ASC family. Yes, all of this is to say we are dressing up a very, very, very boring pedestrian answer, which is there are far too many casks for us to fight over.
Yeah. To me, the answer to that question is, when's the last time you won a lottery ticket? What is your chances of winning the $1 million, $10 million, $20 million on a lottery ticket? It's pretty close. Well, maybe not that close, but the point is, there's so many casks. There are
20 million casks. Just to be clear.
But there's so many casks that ASC, Artisanal Spirits Company, that own that. You know, what are we looking at bottling in 2024? 85, maybe 100 casks, and there are thousands and thousands of casks in their ownership. The chance of finding a cask that we love that SMWS would like and vice versa, it's just not going to happen.
Well, and I think to Jess's additional wrinkle on that, Jess, you and I have discussed this plenty.
Yes, and I think it's also worth pointing out that there's a difference in the way that we, between 2-3 of us, are selecting casks and the process which SMWS use. So if you are unfamiliar with the setup of SMWS, 1, where have you been? 2, the process that they use there is it goes to a tasting panel, and it goes through various stages of kind of mysterious selection. So the odds of, even at the very beginning, if both sides of the ASC family table were looking at it, the odds are that there would be a split somewhere. You know, it's for an SMWS, there's a whole set of processes to do with how the society was founded. So that's the selection, that's the tasting, and that process that they run as their own. And then there's what we do when we're discussing our samples. So even if the odds are by some absolute lottery ticket winning day, we have picked the same cask potentially for selection, doesn't mean necessarily that Single Cask Nation would go through the whole process and land on that cask and the tasting panel would approve it all the way through. So it's a really slim chance. But to be fair to the people who have asked me it when I've stopped being slightly facetious with my answer, I do understand why you would ask that as a question. I think it's a very good point. Sure. And it goes to prove that the sourcing of casks and liquid within the whiskey world is still quite mysterious if you're not on the inside of the whiskey world, or if maybe you aren't perhaps so down and knowledgeable about what independent bottling is and what that looks like. I have just come back from, I very much enjoyed your reference to me being on a beach. I wish I had been. It would have been a very muddy beach. But just come back from a wedding, and a lot of people there obviously were asking what it is I do for a living. And you have to develop this kind of elevator pitch speed of explaining to people who think that if I work with drinks for a living, that means I spend all my time drinking, which is not true. What is it in the mysterious world of whiskey up north that you do? What do you mean you don't have a distillery? So sometimes you have to still take 3 steps back before we even get to the possibility that maybe within the vast warehouses and storage lists of casks that ASC hold, we're picking that exact same one cask. So I think it's a totally valuable question. It's just funny that it's being asked on all sides. So it's not unique. It's not just people in Scotland asking me, whereas in the US, everyone's like, yeah, checks out, seems totally cool, whatever. Just keep bringing the good stuff.
But one of the aspects that's interesting for me is it's focused on what's already in the warehouse and how is that being divided. And one of the add-ons for me in answering the question is all of us are still out there sourcing. And so there are relationships where we are able to source the casks that may very well fit SMWS down the line. SMWS continues to source casks that might work for SCN down the line. And how does that system work? Because we're all ASC, right? That's the clincher there. And so I do want to keep people's eyeballs moving forward and not just looking back to what's currently in warehouse, but what also does the future hold? And what new relationships do we continue to explore? Like, that remains very exciting and was always an exciting part of SCN, spirit of collaboration. You talked a moment ago about the traditional nature of the syndicate, you know, as it was started by Pip Hills, right? Like collaborations with distilleries has always been a real aspect of this. And I think kind of gets missed or glossed over in that answer, you know.
Yeah, I there's another element to this too. You know, within that question is another question, which is, or I should say, within that question is an assumption. The assumption being what we would want to bottle is what SMWS would want to bottle. And the fact of the matter is, like Jess had pointed out, they have a certain process, we have a certain process. They have a certain palate, we have certain palates. And both have merit because palates are subjective, right? Jason, you and I mentioned early on in, I don't know, a couple episodes ago, whenever it was, where here we were selecting casks and we had said no to a couple of casks. And ASC wanted to know why it was a no, just so they have a record of it. And without giving away too much here, we recently said yes to a cask that the SMWS panel had said no to last year for whatever reasons they had chosen. For us, it ticked all the boxes. It did exactly what we wanted it to be doing for that distillery, for that cask type, et cetera, et cetera. For them, it didn't tick their boxes. So I think there's, you know, for ASC as a parent company, doesn't that show you the value of having these sister companies, SCN and SMWS?
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that even if there were that chance of overlap and we wanted one cask and they wanted that cask as well, there's a chance that we may not want it or they may not want it because palates differ. We remain very independent from Scotch Malt Whisky Society. That was the point from the get-go.
Yeah, and I think sometimes as well, if I'm trying to put an SCN hat on when I'm drinking whiskies, sometimes I taste stuff and I think like, you know, that I'm really enjoying this dram, but if it had come to me for cask selection, like when we sit down together with all our little samples and we discuss what we want to try, I'm liking it, but I wouldn't have picked it as a pick for SCN. Sometimes, you know, I think I wouldn't have picked this for SCN because it wouldn't work for the markets I work in, or I would have maybe pegged it for the US. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad whiskey. Yeah. It's also because we are, I mean, this may seem surprising to some listeners, but there is a level of consistency that we're trying to create throughout Single Cask Nation. It's not just all mad rocket adventures from one release to the next. There is something we're trying to create a little bit more kind of coherence in what we're picking and, you know, make sure it ties with our palates and what it is that we pick. And that means also, so when people try Single Cask Nation, you know, that it's a trust. They are trusting us to pick nice whiskies for them to try. So yeah, if I sometimes try them and I think, wow, this is really good, or this is really bold, or, you know, this is a totally different to what I expect. It doesn't mean I dislike the whiskey. It just means with my Single Cask Nation hat on, I wouldn't have picked it. But I have usually paid money for it in a bar, or if I'm pouring in the tastings that I run, then, you know, I've paid for the bottle. It is still being endorsed by it, but it's not necessarily within the mould of Single Cask Nation.
Yeah, no, I'm so pleased to hear you say that, Jess. That was exactly one of our experiences with a cask sample, which was, if we had bought this in someone else's livery, I would not be disappointed with my purchase. Yeah. But it didn't fit within the SCN line of selections, and it was a weird kind of moment to experience, but also a good moment that there is something in particular we're looking for, even if we're not necessarily always articulating.
Yeah, and it can be quite hard to try and articulate what it is when people ask, well, why are you picking that cask? Why you reject? I guess it's easier maybe to do it in reverse. Why are you rejecting that cask? And if we say, well, it's not fitting the profile or the what it is that we do, people who've been in my tastings will have heard me make reference to like circular whiskies, which do a thing that returns you back to where you started. It doesn't. Yeah, if it doesn't match that, then I probably would be a much harsher critic when we are selecting casks or what we're putting into bottles than selecting on a bar, because there's a different risk level there. encouraging us to put out an entire cask of something that I don't believe in is a very difficult selling proposition for me to do at the other end of it. So generally, even if it's not my, not everything that we've bottled is my flavour palette, and we'll come back to that later, there's nothing on here that I think is a bad whiskey. So that's what I'm hoping when I'm pouring Single Cask Nation, people are recognising, oh, it's Single Cask Nation, you know, we can trust that.
Yeah.
We've never heard of that brand mark. We can go on that,
for
you know.
sure.
Oh, that's an interesting cask it's been, and I wonder what that's like. Well, the Single Cask Nation guys have picked it, so I think it's worth taking that step and trusting it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I like the fact we've got a multifaceted response to how we have zero concern over having to pull out the knuckle dusters and taking them into work one day to get an exact cask. Yeah, there's plenty of options out there.
So another question that has been put in front of me, and I wonder if it's been put in front of you, is how has ASC ownership of SCN changed the way that you work? And I think some people are looking for, because I think early on, I think there were a few people saying, is it congratulations or commiserations, right? There were a few people being a little snarky, and of course, congratulations was the right thing because this was really the move that we felt we needed, and in many ways, it's really quite positive. I know I have my answers to how it changes the way that we work. I mean, with me, I lead with cask selection and that process, because that process is quite different than it had been in the past, and I'll go into that in a minute, but I wanted to give you guys the floor to see how you would answer that question.
Well, my immediate answer, the difference for me is that I suddenly have a whole bunch of people, a whole load more people, in fact, as the first starting point. There's a whole bunch of teams that I now work with. But I guess it's also that I have a lot more colleagues and staff I can draw on who are in the same time zone as me, which after working like this for a little while is somewhat surprising. Obviously, we've talked before about our previous bottling hall, and I used to go and visit them, and we had a great relationship, being able to see them face to face. The home of Artisanal and some of those casks is a little bit nearer to me now, which is bad news for them because I can just turn up and make an absolute nuisance of myself much more regularly. They've very, very lovingly allowed me to interfere while they've been bottling some of this outturn that we're about to talk about in a bit, which has been fun. They let me put a high-vis jacket on and just sort of wander around asking questions, which is great.
Ooh.
All in the art form of social medias. So I think that's my immediate change, is that I've got a whole bunch of extra people and they are this side of the pond. Of course, that comes with its own trickeries of working out the paths of who's the person to go to. And I guess in the modern world of working, we're not all in one place at the same time. So not everybody I'm working with is at the Bond. Some of them are working remotely. Some of them are in Edinburgh. So they're not necessarily this side of Scotland for me to go and work with. But yeah, on the face of it, there's a whole bunch of extra people, which is always nice to speak to. And I guess really it's just about learning processes of, I want a thing, who's the person I go and ask? Who do I hit up for getting those samples? Can I come and get those tomorrow? Do you want me to wait a week? That kind of stuff. So all the things that comes with, I guess, expanding a family. It's kind of sizing each other up, working out where everything goes. So, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, no, that's really excellent. I like that answer a lot, Jess. For me, sitting in my isolated office space in rural Virginia, I'm no closer to any other things. What I am closer to, and what will change for me in 24 is the opportunity to get out and see more people again, right? Like partly was pandemic, partly was coming out the back of the pandemic, partly was needing to be in other places, but this getting back on the road again, right? I was telling everybody last week, like, I'll be in San Francisco or the Bay Area twice this year. I'll be in LA twice this year.
Yep.
I've got new spots I'm going to for the first time this year, right? That's a big ask, and that's kind of working through the calendar. And where it fits in with your comment there, Jess, is who are we leaving in charge, or who are we entrusting with parts of this process that have been hands-on day in and day out amongst, us. And now if I go on the road, I'm not falling a week behind on, be it labels or bottling lines or release structures or pickups or invoices or so on and so forth. That to me is this part of having a team behind us now, is that, okay, I can focus on being in market and doing tastings and knowing that the business is still running successfully, even when I'm away from my rural Virginia office. And that's very cool indeed.
Yeah, I
I
think that's
that.
a blessing, but I think there's also a bit there that you're gently not saying, which is it's kind of terrifying. All those things that we've had direct input with. Now there's a team, and you have to trust in the team and the process a little bit. That okay, if you disappear for a week, all those things are just ticking on in the background. It's not necessarily you weren't there, and it's I don't want to open my inbox. It's a funny feeling to let go and to be like, well, that's somebody else. We have a supply chain. Here we have a dry goods sourcing team. We have all those kind of processes in place to let go of and let it happen as part of the grander scheme of ASC.
Well, and I think that's where as we sit here today, 4 months into this, we're getting to know that team. We're getting to know the individual players. We're getting to know how they operate. We're getting to trust them. And so I would say I'm less terrified by that proposition sitting here in month 4 than I was month 1, when it was, what is this going to look like? How is this going to happen? And there's, we're always honest with the audience. Like, there's still days that come along where you're like, oh, I wasn't talking to the right person. Oh, the job hasn't moved forward at all. But now I've been connected to the correct person, and we will know going forward. So I'm sure the confidence I've got in month 4 will be even stronger by month 8 and year 2 and so on and so forth. I think it's building very positively.
Yeah, I mean, you guys remain closer.
You guys.
Great. Now all I can do is talk like sloth the entire time.
That's it.
Hey,
You're welcome.
Sloth, love, anyway. Rocky Road. Anyway, you guys, I can't do it. You guys remain closer to the logistics end of things. Before the ASC acquisition, now here with the ASC acquisition. So, it's difficult for me to talk to that simply because you both are tied to it more than I am. However, if I were in that position, that sort of stuff doesn't scare me. It kind of excites me. It kind of, you start a new job and like, how do I get to this job? Did I take the right turn? Did I take the wrong turn? And eventually you know the route. Eventually you know when to hit the road, what turns to take if traffic hits. Like, it's all a learning process, and I kind of enjoy that learning process. Now, granted, you guys are deeper into it, so I can understand why it might be a little more frightening than it is for me as an outsider's, a slight outsider's perspective. But there has been a slightly scarier thing for me on this side, where I no longer wear an Impex hat. And so I knew when the retail stuff for the U.S. would come in, and I understood how to allocate that out to the various markets, work with the various sales reps to ensure, everything is going out there the way it should be. Now I'm on the outside of that. And so it's learning how to communicate again with Impex as a supplier to make sure I get the understanding of where things go and who to work with and how to work with them. So that's new to me, but I'm kind of excited about that. It gives me a new way to work with some of the Impex reps and set up my travel, which, like you, Jason, my travel's going to change. Now I'm gonna have I'm adding Canadian travel back to my roster, which I hadn't had in years, and I'm kind of excited about that. Logistics and travel aside, how we select casks is quite different. We always had 100 casks somewhere around there in our warehouse at any given time, and when we needed to select casks for a release, we would select casks in advance of that release. And now our aim is to select all the casks for a given year.
Yep.
Right up front. So, last week, Jason, you and I going through 40, 50 cask samples, that was unheard of before. Like, that's a whole new way of working and evaluating and making sure that we're honoring our system and doing it the right way, That's a change, but that's an exciting change.
Yeah, well, and Jess being in a position to, get those safely overseas, which, again, I'm thinking about your earlier comment, Jess, when you're giving an elevator pitch. Like, you can't even come close to the minutia, and getting 40 samples, A, ordered, B, pulled, C, collected, D, or 5 or 12. I don't even know how many steps I'm at now. Right? Getting them packaged, getting them to America. Like there are people in Scotland who don't know how to get samples overseas. And we've got Jess in-house taking care of that part. Like, that's tremendous to me, that's for us, and again, our privileged positions, is that hasn't caused any headache for us, because we say, Jess, could you make them appear? And she does, and it's amazing.
When that first request came through, I really honestly thought Josh had made a hideous typo in the number of samples. He said, could you just go and pick up? And I was like, oh yeah, 10 samples, that'll be what that is. No, he was right. It was 100 and something samples. Like, oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't have anything else on this evening. I just really I can now almost do it in my sleep, packaging up, putting it in a box, there's the whole rigmarole, just physically, it makes me almost sick with anxiety thinking about that many tiny little samples that the only reference is one tiny little white label. If I think about it sometimes, I think if that leaks somewhere between here and rural Virginia or rural Connecticut, the idea that how would we work it out? I sent you a box that has 40 samples. How would we know not only what the one that destroyed everything else was, but what the other things contained within there were? So there's a whole system that you guys aren't seeing of me cataloguing, writing them out, photographing what's in which box and where, so that if the very worst thing, and please, sample gods, do not mess with me, but if, the bad thing happens, we could try and piece it all together, because I dread having to go back and be like, hi, warehouse friends, could you just run another 100 samples, please?
I know.
Right?
That would be a nightmare.
That would be a nightmare.
That would be.
Yeah, every time I get this little text saying, hey, UPS have
just
delivered them off, I think, oh, thank God.
Aired.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's a very,
aired.
very unsexy bit of the job that when people obviously see what I do and they see, my Instagram or social media, presenting all these very glamorous, jet-setty things that I do, there's a whole bunch of stuff that I think are integral to the movement of this industry. And I don't just mean that I'm doing, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that isn't sexy cool that you would put on your, Instagram stories or you would put up on Facebook. There's a whole bunch of really pretty boring spreadsheets. Making sure I have enough.
Steve Hawley is grimacing right now.
Yeah, that man
Steve
loves a
Hawley.
spreadsheet.
That's his happy place.
Very, very sad.
Oh yeah. The bigger, the better.
Make a good spreadsheet. He's really good.
My happy place is in a warehouse with a village and some sort of extractor, which doesn't happen half as often as I was hoping this job would entail. And let me tell you, I knew it was already going to be a pretty low number of occasions I was allowed to be loose in a warehouse causing havoc. So, yeah, it's not all just the glamorous pouring whiskey into glasses and, like, you know, chatting about it. There's a whole lot of work that goes into getting it as far as you being able to walk into your favourite retailer and grabbing it off the shelf and being like, yippee, there's a new Single Cask Nation bottle. And I would like to point out, I don't really necessarily want the people who are buying our bottles to be like, oh my God, can you imagine the blood, sweat and tears those 3 poor souls have had to go through to get this on a shelf in sunny California? Like, I don't really need you guys to be seriously thinking about that. It's really funny, I guess, you know, when you talk to people whose jobs are in logistics and this kind of thing, and you think, like, shit, that's quite a lot more than, yes, that cask there, we thumb wrestled for that with SMWS, and then it just appeared in California. Excellent. Move on. So, that's my 2 pence.
Yeah, it's all spreadsheets all the way down. It's very few Valencies and bung poppers.
Consumer questions aside, I've got a question for you both, and I'm going to start with you, Jess, because you know you joined the company September 2019, and then come 2020, COVID hit. And you really hadn't had a chance to hit a number of our markets because of COVID and then just, you know, for various reasons here and there. Now that you're out in the market and with your most recent trip to Germany, and Jason, I'm going to ask the same of you because you're traveling again as well. What are things you're learning now seeing markets you hadn't been able to visit previously?
Sure. Yeah, it was a bit strange but exciting to finally be in Germany in person. During COVID, I did a couple of tastings with our importers, but done virtually. So I was obviously speaking to consumers in the country, but not face to face. I could reach out and touch these people's faces. Not that I did, but that's a very strange way of making friends, I'm told. I've learned.
Reach out and touch
also, that's
me.
Okay, but
come on, you guys got that song in your head, right?
Yeah, Rick Astley.
For God's sake. So
it's your own personal Rick Astley. Your own personal Rick Astley.
I would like that. Apparently he's a very nice man. I would not object to just having him singing behind me. Anyway, yes. So that was very exciting. And Nuremberg Whiskey Festival is one of the biggest. I think the guys at Prineus said something like 18,000 attendees over the weekend. So that's a lot of faces. Also, some dogs. Never met. Not assistance dogs, just dogs. That's really nice as somebody pouring whiskey to just get a chance to run around the table and give a dog a pat.
I love that.
So random. Please bring all your strange pets. Bring your ferrets. Bring your horses.
Snakes.
Oh, I'm not so bothered about them. That's a bit no. So I had kind of 3 decent days to get to know people that were coming. Obviously, I was very lucky. Prineus have a whole bunch of lovely friends. So that's funny when we're talking about being like part of a family for ASC. I guess when we leave the UK, when we go into our export markets, that's the same situation. We're a family member under one importer. So it's got a nice kind of tie in there. And Prineus have a whole bunch of fun brands to work with. I got to hang out with Drew and Helen from Lindor's Abbey, which was really lovely because I've been a fan of the liquid. But I was kind of like unfettered access to ask them as many questions as I could throw at them before the punters came, and kept us super busy. I had Madhu from Indri on the other side of me, so that was nice.
Oh, there you go.
And he was very excited to meet the third and most important J of the 3 Js. So that was nice. And I kind of commented saying it's really funny. Indri are doing so well in Germany. They're really big, making loads of headway. It's not very often that you have an Indian whiskey on your table that people literally make a beeline for, and that's all they want. Like, there were people overlooking trying Scotch whiskey because they were waiting to hear from Madhu about Indri. So that's super cool to be part of that. And I got a chance to talk to a lot of different people, and hopefully shake And there were people who were very keen to impress upon me that stereotype that we sometimes refer to on here, Joshua, about Germans liking very...
Watch out for the bus!
Here we go! About Germans...
I'm getting thrown under something.
It's coming back over. Yeah, there was more than one and unconnected people who are very keen to impress upon me that they weren't just looking for the most heavily sherried whiskey on the table, which, to be fair to the Germans, and I did tell them, is a question I get asked a lot in Scotland. So I don't think it's a uniquely German stereotype. Quite often when you're pouring at a whiskey festival in Scotland, people just want the darkest, most sherried. I had a whole bunch of people asking me, what can I try that's in a bourbon cask? Do you have something unusual? We don't just want the dark and super sherry, super peated, which I didn't have anything mega peated. I had our little crofty with us, so that was kind of the heaviest peated expression I could offer. Yeah. Do you know what else they had on the table? I don't know how they'd managed to squirrel it away. They had our very first Barbadian, no, it wasn't Barbadian, our very first Trinidadian rum. The relabeled.
Nice.
And when I saw it on the table, I did a little happy weep because, my God, there's some rum. And I tell you what Germans are not very into. I love taking things to festivals you can't buy. I like to go to a tasting and here's the thing you can't buy because I'm sharing a little treasure. I had underestimated how upset people were going to get that they were being poured a thing they couldn't then purchase, which is a lovely problem to have. So yeah, there was a lot of people because obviously they hadn't necessarily heard of Single Cask Nation, or they obviously haven't really, apart from a couple, met me before. So it was really nice kind of getting to know what people were liking. Our linkwood was absolutely going down a storm. So that's the linkwood that was in the French oak. Sold a load of that. Yeah, it was funny. It was nice getting to hear what people really wanted. I was sort of giving it as an opportunity to do unsolicited marketing. What is it the German market wants? Obviously, every market that we report back on, a lot of it is price driven, but they're looking for not necessarily, I would say the average age of the whiskies they're looking for is probably slightly higher than what I know you guys find in the US. People aren't necessarily looking for 6 and 9 year olds, but they weren't adverse to it either. You know, lots of people interested in, when they have heard of Single Cask Nation, we get asked quite a lot about the bourbons, about the turkeys and the American stuff that we bottle. So that was nice. I was sending people around the corner to go and drink from the Westland table. So if there was a whole bunch of people asking Westland questions, they'll have been like, awesome. Because there were 3 single cask exclusives for Germany on the Westland table, 2 of which were very close to, in cask numbers, to ones that we have recently bottled. So that was pretty cool to have a little go around and nerd out and be like, showing the pictures of things we've bottled. I think we've discussed this before. I really like the European model of whiskey festivals. And you can tell me, because I've only ever obviously done like the Jubilee and a couple of other fairly infamous, but not ones that I'd recommend, US whiskey festivals, where in Europe you pay an entry fee and that gets you a glass, but all the drams you pay per dram, which is more or less unheard of in the UK. And I think it creates more conversation. You don't get people who just walk along with their glasses out. You actually get somebody who's come to the table and they want to take your recommendation, or they come, knowing that they want to try 2 or 3 little things. And I think it makes the interactions almost like a mini speed tasting with these people. You've got their attention, not just to the dram, but because they've paid for the drams, they then want to ask questions and they have follow-up points they want to make. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't just somebody taking a whiskey and immediately leaving. Sometimes I find in the UK, I feel like if I want to stand and ask questions, I'm sort of stopping the person behind the table, giving whiskey to somebody else. Yeah. Whereas if you're paying for a couple of drams, you've got that person who's behind the table for a couple of minutes. You can really ask everything you want or hear whatever it is they have to tell you about the whiskey. So that's refreshing to me.
They're invested, right? That's what I love about that model is now you both have skin in the game. That person is giving you €2, €3, €5, whatever it is, because they said, ooh, that seems interesting. I like that cask type. I like that distillery. And they're making the choice of what they want to drink rather than paying a ridiculously high ticket price to get in and just hope, liquid falls into your glasses and
then to
move
make
around
sure
the
you've drunk
festival.
it.
I really do like that.
Yeah. And then to make sure you feel like you're certainly in Glasgow, you've drunk your ticket entry price in Whisky. Several people who, to my face, have told me that. The thing I was not prepared for with Nuremberg was that because people are paying per dram, they were paying in cash. Very weird. And that would mean I'd have to do some mathsing. I'd have to add up some drams and come back with some change. That was a little bit stressful to start with. I've just got so used to like tapping my card for everything, but for people buying per dram, by and large they were paying with actual cash, and if they were buying bottles, then obviously they tend to use the cards instead. But yeah, so that threw me for a loop for a minute. I was like, oh no, 5 of you have had these drams and you've given me €50 and you want the right change back. It's not very often I have to do maths without a spreadsheet. So.
And you want the right change back?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was. I don't know. I guess I hadn't just really thought about that. But yeah, the idea of paying per dram, I think, creates much better conversation. I think it allows much more intelligent thought into it, and I do genuinely think there needs to be a little bit of a break between your brain telling your hand to put the glass out. I think if you've had to reach for money first, I just think it slows up. I think that generally the behaviour is better. People are then, taking pictures of the bottles, they're writing notes. It was great to be able to do direct sales from the stand at the show. I think that is a big struggle that we have in the UK and probably for the US is if you're drinking a whiskey that you really love, but it's maybe not a name that you've heard of, if I give you a dram of a Tin Innick and you think that's just the absolute bee's knees and you must have a bottle of it, when you've maybe had some other responsible drams, by the time you've made it to the shop, you're like, what was it I had? And and
was it tea cake something?
The turret. I think that can be hard for a whiskey consumer because you are literally a kid in a candy store, right? There's tons, literally in some places, thousands of drams between you and the retail store. And some time, and you've met your mates who've, you've got to come try this, and I really want to, they've just poured, so by the time you get to the retail, if you remember to exit via the gift shop, you can be quite lost from where you were. So it's quite nice to be able to pour drams for people, and I certainly had people who were like, I want to think about it, but I am going to come back at the end of the day, and I would say 90% of the people who were like, no, I'm coming back for the end of the show did, and some of that I think is because they had a little bit of a clearer mind. They were able to remember where we were, which, let me tell you, Nuremberg at the Whiskey Village, it's like a maze. There were people that I know in the trade that were at the show that I didn't see for the first day and a half until I messaged them and be like, we have to find each other. And I wasn't even drinking, so that's quite impressive that people remembered not only where we were, but remembered to come to me and be like, I really want to take that liquid, I want to take the Longrow, whatever. So that was really nice. And I'm guessing with the way the 3-tier system works in the US, that's not something you guys get to experience.
Yeah, the reason I was in San Francisco, the anchor event for me was the Fog City Social. And interestingly, the Fog City Social is a tasting event solely for members of the San Francisco Whiskey Society. And so if you're not a member of the Whiskey Society, you cannot independently purchase a ticket to the event. Now, if you're a society member, you can bring a guest or a couple of guests. Yeah, I don't actually know the numbers, but I know people could bring guests. And so that made it a very different proposition from the very beginning, right? It would be like when we did the Jubilee, if it was only nation members who came in the door, right? And instead we had it as a public event where we saw a ton of nation members. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting opening proposition. We were actually in a room. There were a couple of larger areas with a bunch of tables back to back, traditional style. I was in a room with Impex. And so I was pouring next to Sam, our beloved Sam, and Summer, and Zakai, who's a new JVS Bay Area guy, and that was tons of fun, right? Again, to feel within the family on that, and for people to be having the Ardnamurchan on my table, and then the Ardnamurchan sitting right beside on the Impex table. And so the ability for crossover there was very nice. They were sending people over to taste Wolf Island Take 2. I was proudly pouring Wolf Island Take 2 on the table. If people would say, like, where would be a good place to start? Right here, Wolf Island Take 2. This is going to be right up your alley. And it was very, very well received. So that was nice. And then Fog City Social partnered with a retailer called Maison Carbeau in San Francisco. And so every table had a QR code on it. And you could scan the QR code, and that would take you to the product page at Maison Carbeau, and you could add that bottle to your cart. You so to your point, Jess, about people like, oh, do I remember the name of that one after I've had a few more responsible drams? Even that part was gone. If you tasted that and in the moment thought, even if you didn't follow through and complete the purchase in that moment, you were at least adding it to your virtual shopping cart. So if you then came back, you could think to yourself, like, okay, am I really going to pull the trigger on that? Did I really enjoy that as much in the moment? And while leaving, there was a guy, I poured him, whatever the first thing I'd poured him, he'd said, oh no, that doesn't fit my palate. And he'd said, I'm more of a bourbon guy. And I said, oh, well, let me pour this for you. And it was the Wolf Island Take 2. And he said, "Oh, yes, that I like." And then I saw him when he was exiting at the close of the event. And I said, "Hey, I'm really glad that Wolf Island works out for you." And he said, "It's sitting in my cart." And so, and again, whether he ever pulls the trigger on that purchase, who knows? But the fact that he was able to connect himself to that product from tasting it at the table was really cool. So I think some very nice wrinkles at Fog City. I think a nice attempts at working within that 3-tier system and saying, okay, what's a way we can make this system work, even if it's not quite as ideal as having bottles that people can physically leave with, which is a big ask over here. And then it was a 3.5 hour show, and I would say the first 3 hours were very, very strong, and people were excited and tasting and asking questions, and it was very good. And then I'd said to the organizers at the close, like, I could have done without the last 30 minutes. It became a little bit of a grab in the last 30 seconds. Like time is running out. I'm gonna have to leave here soon. And listen, this isn't particular to this festival. This is all festivals. When the time starts ticking down and you're starting to take bottles off your table, and punters are just looking, who's still got bottles on the table, right? And so I don't know if there's a way to eliminate that, but I did feel like the quality of the show dipped in the final 30 minutes through no fault of the show organizers, just by people have got some booze in them, they're looking for a wee bit more on the way out the door, and you're not talking to anybody at that point about your American oak full maturation California red wine Linkwood, right? It's just like, red one, and in the glass it goes.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, if that were a 3-hour show, right around 2:30, the same thing, or 2.5 hours in, the same thing would have happened. I would. Yeah, go ahead.
Just the very final point on that, because you mentioned the time, rightly so. Knowing that it wasn't a 4-hour show from the very beginning, like, that was exciting. Walking in the door knowing 3.5, and if it had been 4 from that 3.5 hours on to the 4, that would have been the moment when people were like, that one. So it's always there, but 3.5 hours.
I think as well, the festivals I've done where there's a bell rung at some point and they'll announce an arbitrary number of minutes left, like either 30 minutes or 15 minutes. People then take that as some sort of like apocalypse disaster, like, oh no, run around, get more. That's where you see like a little moment of madness really properly descend on some people. And like, yeah, at the end, especially in Scotland, when you've put the bottles under the table, just one more. I'm like, you've had like blah blah hours of just one more dram. Like you really don't need and won't remember what this is, you know. If I was cruel, maybe I could just pour some like famous grouse, you know. Just have that.
Other brands are available.
Or very expensive Macallan. Like, it doesn't really matter at that point. It's the personal gain of I got one more dram, which really winds me up no end. I think you've had more than your fair share. You know, everyone's a little bit merry. Like, don't ruin it. It's like, just don't tip it over the edge. Just go on your merry way. Go to the pub. Have some more in the pub where you're no longer my problem.
Right. Go buy some. No, I remember back in the early days when we were doing the bottles off the table and underneath, and somebody would say like, do you have one more? And in the early days, I always thought like, you don't want to say no to a potential Nation member. This might be their discovery, right? Yeah. And then after a number of years, I was like, that's not moving the dial at all, because the person who would do the quick cheeky grab at the end, they're not in it to win it, right? We're not going to change a mind or discover or maybe even be remembered in the morning. And so I'm a lot more strict about, nope, you heard it, last call, it's over. You can go find the other noob who thinks that this might move the dial and get a dram from them.
Well,
but
I think at the very least, the guy who had the Wolf Island in his shopping cart, and he said, I don't think he's ever going to give you up. I don't think he'll ever let you down. Geez. He won't run around. He won't desert you. He's not going to make you cry. He's not going to say goodbye.
I wondered why you had a crowbar in your hands while I was like entering the last seconds of my comment there. Now I know why you were handling that crowbar. Okay, well done. That was suitably crammed in the side door.
Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you.
Let's do literally anything else in this podcast
now. So let us do something else. We have... we'd been teasing the fact that Jess has a new release.
This is true.
Right?
This is true.
For what we used to call these Jess's releases the rest of the world releases. And now, what do we call them again? We've got new nomenclature.
Key global markets.
Key global markets. KGMs. Yeah. KGMs.
Yeah, or GMs.
Then they're not key, are they?
Well, not everyone can be key. Not every key gets you into your house.
What?
That makes no sense.
So Jess has things to talk about. Jason, you and I have things to talk about.
We do.
And we can't talk about any of it without the paperboy.
Extra, extra! Read all about it! Life story of Playboy Penny! Extra, extra! Extra, extra! Read all about it! Me and that Playboy in trouble again!
Thanks very much, Paperboy. I think we should give him more credit than he gets. The fact that all these seasons you've never actually given him a name is actually quite upsetting to me.
Didn't we have a name for him at one point? I feel as if we gave him like a... No?
Maybe in one. Who knows? Who knows?
There's a listener
far too many episodes to remember.
This poor guy
out there knows.
Yeah, emailing. There's this poor guy, and he does things like help us make important announcements, and you're like, that guy. So
it's the fact we wake him up, but we never put him back to sleep again. So
I just assume once he's done his job, he's like, enough, and then goes to sleep.
This was the key complaint that the doctor on Star Trek Voyager had as a hologram. No one would put him to sleep, and he would just be there in the sick bay, you know.
Why was he in the sick bay? Oh, he was the doctor.
He was the doctor, but he was a holograph.
I wonder if he had a virus.
People.
Oh, God.
Star Trek fans are loving this.
I'm sure they do.
Diddle-a-diddle-a-diddle.
Do we have any of them?
So, global markets are getting some whiskies.
I honestly think we've missed a massive trick. We should just call them Jess's markets. It sounds mysterious.
Oh, I do like that. Jess, talk about your markets.
Oh. No need to page HR just yet. So we have 6 things. 6 things, but sort of secretly 5. Allow me to come to that in a minute. We have broken my mould. We have gone for an all Scottish release.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is exciting. Because there are 6 really nice things. How would you like me to do this? Would you like me to run you through 6 things we have, and then we can do a little dive into them?
Yes.
Can we do it this way? The way you talk about them. So one of the things that I love about this release is there's distilleries that we've been after to bottle that we rarely get to bottle, and they're kind of new and fun, and so maybe save those for last.
That's mean. That makes it sound like there are some that are better than others.
Right.
Okay, so maybe okay. I'll remove all that. I'll remove all that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could go alphabetically. I don't have them arranged alphabetically. That's a good way to put me on the spot.
Oh yeah, alphabetically. I like that.
I
always think age works if you go from the youngest to the oldest, because then you're also mirroring price. But also, it does not matter.
We could do it by ABV. Hang on, do I have the ABVs? Yeah, we could do it by. Should we do that? Would you like that?
You do it by year the distillery has been established.
Founded, yeah.
Oh, yikes, that might be more challenging. Or I could do it by the number of people they have working in the mash house, or however the highest proportion of them have blue socks.
The blue sock, yeah, that's a good one.
It's a well-known metric. Actually, if you read this year's edition of Ingvar Ronda, I think you'll find that's how he's also collated them all together. He's decided alphabetically is too pedestrian a way to organise distilleries. Okay, well, how about we go in no particular order? We could talk about
first water temperatures.
Which ones have worm tubs? Finally, this is the worm tub episode. It's not, listeners. Please continue to email in upsetting Jason. It's very funny. Okay, well, how about we can cover our non-malt. So we have a grain, and I'm going to start here because I've already mentioned I like to upset people, and this one's not coming to the UK. So I feel like this is a great place to start off this release. We've got a cheeky little 9-year-old Girvan hiding in this range. So if you are in one of the markets who are not the UK, God, talk about splitting hairs, not in the UK but are also not in America, and your name begins with a Y, then you are lucky recipients of the Girvan.
Yolanda's loving this.
Yeah, so into it. I don't often see Girvan very young. I was trying to think of this when we were picking the casks. I think the last Girvan that I saw at this age was a Cadenheads one. And it had been finished in a red wine cask. So we've gone for something a little bit more straightforward here. This one is First Fill Bourbon Hogshead, which is a finish. Oh, I feel like very quickly we're going to get into a wormhole as what's a finish and what's a second maturation.
Oh, yes.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
This is 11 months, so I'm fairly confident that I could call this a finish. I feel like 11 months is
safely. Very safely.
11 months of our 9 years we can get into. Now, for those of you who paid attention in release number 5, which of course you all have done and you've made notes and you're ready to refer to those in front of you now, we've discussed frequently as to why we allow the colourblind person of the company to pick the colours of these whiskies. But here we are. You can tell this is not one of mine. And I was talking about this with a guy in Germany. It's funny, when I look at our tasting notes, I can now see whose notes come from where. So obviously, the Iron Brew dyed koi carp of the West under the previous release may have been me. This is a little bit more sensible, so this is obviously not me. This is Jason's Reflective Gold.
Yep. So sensible.
Reflective Gold is such a classic. That takes me back to when Charlie MacLaine and Michael Jackson were writing the tasting notes for Whisky magazine, and you could set your watch by a good reflective gold. So
is that your inspiration?
it takes me to my happy place.
I like it. It's a bit missionary, but I like it.
Have we got a paging HR paper boy?
Well, it took until 8th season for us to get cancelled, but thanks, Joshua, you have taken care of business.
You are welcome.
It's been a great ride.
Oh!
Hey now.
Keep up.
Jess, just don't add to it.
So, I didn't want to ignore this because it's not coming to UK. I think this is really nice. It's got a really lovely kind of texture to it. It's quite oily, I seem to remember. And we talked a lot about kind of sweet things, tinned fruit cocktail syrupy type stuff.
Yep.
I think it's really interesting because it's really not very often you see young grains. I think they definitely have a reputation for being a bit brash. Not enough kind of development in the liquid, tends to be quite sort of solventy, and this one really isn't. So if you get if you get a chance to try this Girvan, definitely don't be put off by the age. But that's okay, because we know as the nation members, they're not bothered by age.
And that's it. When we launched US retail in 2017, we had a 10-year-old Girvan front and centre in that release. And it was delicious and bright and citrusy, not solventy in the slightest. So, yeah, grain can do well young. This is an example of that.
Yeah.
There you go.
I remember that 10-year-old Girvan, I poured it in a tasting. And it was delicious.
Bless you.
And it was, I got all of the usual, it's so young and it's a grain. Because I think if people are aware of grains, they're used to seeing them with higher age statements. So it definitely comes with a little bit of suspicion in it. But yeah, I think Girvans are definitely underrated in terms of grain format. I know traditionally we are clan Invergordon. But I think this is a nice little one to try out. Okay, so maybe I will go for something. So the rest of these will be available in the UK and the other markets. So, just to make that clear, let's go all the way north. We've got Stones. So this is the first time we're doing a Stones of Stenness outside of the US. So for those people who maybe have not heard that, or they're like, what does that mean? We've got a little helpful indicator also on the label, which says brackets Orkney. So this is also a 9-year-old. Oh, I'm so thirsty talking about these, clearly. This is also a 9-year-old, and this has had a little holiday in a first fill bourbon barrel. So now here I think we're speeding past the concept of finish and maybe into a second maturation, because we've had 75 months.
Yeah, this one needs a touch of maths.
Yeah.
To get that into years.
I would also like to formally raise a complaint as somebody who doesn't carry around a calculator and doesn't like dividing by 12. 75 months either sounds like an extremely long time or not long enough.
Well, 6/12 is going to get you to 72, so that's a pretty safe kind of, okay. This is a bit like my 16 centigrade is 61 Fahrenheit. Like 6/12, 72, always got that in my back pocket.
I usually put my wallet there, but
yeah, I was gonna say, should not put your phone there.
Gives you sciatica. Yeah, you should not put your wallet in your back pocket.
Sciatica. That's right.
Yep.
Okay, so
I have room for 6/12s in my back pocket.
So if we're saying it's over, according to Jason's high-speed pocket maths there, it's over 6 years, which is really 2/3 of its life in something else.
Definitely not
I think the way we've always sort of delineated between a finish and a double maturation is once the whiskey's in that second cask at 3 years, then it's a double maturation. If it can become a whiskey again in that second cask, that's a double maturation. Anything prior to that, if it's 2 years, 9 months, well, that seems like a finish. At least that's the way that I always talk.
You have to be very careful. You may invoke the spirit of Mark Watt, who is possibly listening, who is going to talk to you about resting, which is an argument I'd like to have on wax with him on a different day. He knows where to find me.
Resting becomes a full sleep, depending on how many months it's in there.
Or it's just on your face,
Is that where you keep your whiskey? It's a very messy place to keep your whiskey. So our Stones of Stenness brackets Orkney, close brackets.
Yep.
So most people will be like, oh, it's a insert distillery name here. So maybe we could give some notes. This is really causing me pain, Jason. You know how much I love tasting notes on a podcast. But here we are, dear listeners, because apparently you all love them.
You're the one that focused on colour comments a moment ago as well.
I was really leaning fully into this. Okay, so
bless you, Jess. Bless you.
I think we've got some fairly classic Orkney distillery things happening in this whiskey. We had some peach juice. That may not be classic. I feel like we picked. I'm looking at what I have written here. I feel like we picked peach juice pretty quickly and early on in these notes, in our gnome and our nose. I don't know, when we write these notes, I tend to hang up the call and have to immediately go and eat something because I am so hungry. In here we've got some key lime pie. So here's the more classic thing. We've got oat cakes and cracked black pepper. For me, that's really common for this distillery. That kind of like a little bit mealy, but definitely the cracked black pepper. And smoke. The smoke took a little while to come through, and this one definitely rewards you in your glass. If you leave it to sit a little while, the smoke does tend to grow quite nicely. And
I remember from you saying sweet heather smoke.
Yeah, which is very classic
when we were sitting.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
And I can see you've brought in some sophisticated tasting notes in here because we've got white tea and honey.
There you go. Yeah. That's classic for us.
Yep.
Which in Yorkshire is not a thing, so that's definitely not my tasting note. Digestive biscuits in there, that sounds more like me. So yeah, that's nice. That's our first Stones of Stenness this side of the pond, which is exciting. With that pretty decent, like nice, fresh, juicy bourbon in it, which makes it just a little delight to drink. And I think this is a great kind of, can we call them everyday sippers? I sometimes call them everyday drinking drams. This is definitely good prime territory for an everyday drinking dram, I think.
Especially as the days are getting a bit warmer. Like that's one I wouldn't mind sitting outside, the little sun on my face. I mean, granted, I live here in the U.S. and not in a Greek country like you.
Let me tell you, we've forgotten what sunshine looks like in Glasgow. It's just a mirage. I had 5 beautiful days of sunshine in Germany, and I don't think I've seen it since, and that's a month and a half ago. So that's why whiskey, I think, is great for all weathers, because we don't need to think about sunshine whiskey too often here. Moving along, I think we'll come down to Speyside. Right. We've got a little kind of mid-teenage aged whiskey here, so we're stepping that up too. We've got an Inchgower 15-year-old, and we've had another kind of second maturation here in First Fill Bourbon Hogshead, so a little bit of a bigger cask than our Stones of Stenness, and that was for 29 months, so 2 and a bit years by Jason's pocket maths. So
it is, 2 12s. I think everyone's got that in their back pocket.
It's just typical. I mean, like, have you ever tried? Well, obviously you haven't, but let me tell you the amount of dresses that I own that don't have pockets. So, pocket maths isn't an option here. I really like Inchgower. We've bottled a bunch of them. They're definitely a favourite of the indie bottlers. And that's one of the ones that when people come to the table and they're maybe just discovering what independent bottlers are doing, they're like, what's this? And you have to explain, you know, it's strong blend fodder, but don't let that fool you. That's definitely not a negative to it. It means it's got a great consistent character. And I think this is quite a chunky Inchgower. I don't know if I've seen too many. 12 seems to be fairly common in the age 12, 13. So we've got a couple of extra
15.
years happening here.
I like the age on this.
We've got.
I also read last week that Inchgower have got aggressively down-facing line arms.
Oh,
it checks it. Given the weight of that spirit, right?
Exactly,
it totally makes sense.
I was going to say, and we've definitely talked about that here.
Yeah,
exactly.
We've got lots of kind of damp oak, sweet corn. You know, like if you. Again, on my elevator pitch of explaining what we do, when I give these tasting notes singularly, if I read these out loud as one-off things, smells like a medicine cabinet, everyone's going to be like, wow, definitely rushing to the shops to buy that.
Did we write that for this one?
Yeah, we did. We have got here, now Jen, I'll read you the actual palette. We've got soft and round with a definite heft. brown licorice, all sorts, toasted coconut, burnt hay, sweet cereals, diluted molasses or treacle, and a sugar tweel. Get us.
Oh, I was the sugar tweel. I remember saying that.
Yeah.
We've got, all right.
Fwa, fwa, fwa.
Some of this is
white tea, honey.
Some of this is
sugar
me.
tweels.
We've got weighty with buttered malt loaf and lasting brown licorice, all sorts.
Oh, yes. Malt loaf.
Oh, the malt loaf note. Yes.
Malt loaf with custard is such a favourite of mine.
This is definitely a chunky little Speyside number. I know sometimes we can portray Speyside as being sort of light and fruity and delicate. This guy is not that. It's definitely there's definitely more chunk happening in this. So that's really nice to see a kind of decent age on an inch gower. What else? Oh, now we're in the ones that are poured in front of me.
I love that you said chunk, because I've always
chunky.
said sloth love chunk. Right?
You guys.
Hey, you guys, Rocky Road.
I will also add that the day that this episode drops, Joshua and I will have helped Charlie Prince launch his inch-gower single cask for drammers.
Nice.
And that is a heavy sherry with a heavy spirit inch-gower. So, that was... retroactively, I will say that was a good event.
Yeah, actually, just really quickly, Charlie sent me a picture of his open bottle and liquid in the glass, and he said, "My gosh, this is better than I remembered."
That's it, right? That's
So there
All
you
of
go.
that sounds very
I'm
plausible.
sure the joke will be made many times over how long it took from it being selected on a live Drammers podcast to being launched.
What, February 2020? I don't know what you're talking about.
No, that wasn't selected February 2020. It was a post-pandemic selection.
Oh, that was a return from pandemic. Yes, that's right. So
correct. So it's probably only a couple of years.
2022, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what that guy's complaining about.
It's not like it was 4 years, it was 2
Yeah, it's
whole
not
years.
4.
4.
That's why I had to call you on it. Like, it wasn't 4. 2, maybe.
He's probably only
Sorry,
counting it in months. That's he's like could be a short time, could be a long time.
2, how does it 12 plus 12? How does this work?
All right, what follows the inch gower?
I'm going to head back to the Highlands, but across the other side of the country, in what is probably a short American car drive, but to most people who live here, an outrageously far distance. We're going to go to Fort William, so we've got a Ben Nevis.
Woohoo!
And this is our first of the release that we've got a little bit of sherry happening here. We've got first fill American Oak PX Sherry Hogsheads for a not too short 37-month finish.
Call that a double maturation. Thank you.
Okay. You can add little asterisks to all these descriptions as I go. So I mentioned earlier that sometimes we release things that I don't necessarily love, which is quite hard to believe because I like most whiskies. And Ben Nevis is something I've made no bones of. I've really struggled over the years to find Ben Nevises that I like. In an attempt that I'm hoping doesn't look too brown nosy, the first time I had a Ben Nevis that I actually really liked and would have had a second glass was with you, Jason, when we were in the Barrel Thief in Seattle. Many years ago, where there was a pair. Was there not a pair in the retail release of Ben Nevises?
Yeah.
Is there a plural of Ben Nevis? Ben Nevi.
I know, right?
And that was the first one that I had tried and thought, oh, this doesn't just taste like kind of slightly wet wood. And I really enjoyed that. So when I got some cask samples which said Ben Nevis, I trusted in the process. I thought I would try. Look, guys, it's not possible to love them all. I am actually really pleased with this. And when we picked it, I think it's got a lovely kind of... It's got some of that Ben Nevis funkiness that I know Ben Nevis drinkers definitely look for. But I think the sherry in the cask has kind of kept it in check. It's not too weirdly pulling in one direction to the other. We've got a bit of the old burnished copper on the go here.
Guilty.
And we've got some burnt whole wheat toast, earthen floor, smouldering and damp campfire. And then I remember we talked a little while about umami and that kind of shiitake miso type thing, which I think when it's present really heavily in Ben Nevis, I'm not into. But again, we've talked about that. Doesn't mean it's not
on the palate.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I know that, Jess, you had mentioned before that Germans are getting away from that heavy sherry kind of dank quality whiskey. But for those who have not left that camp, this is really going to set their world on fire. It really fits that palate, I think.
I would say it's moderately dank. Like, it's not enough that makes me want to run for the hills. I would quite happily drink several very large measures of this.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Of an evening.
Yeah, it has an earthiness to it that then plays off of the juiciness from the PX.
Yeah.
Like it's, I really. So my story, not too dissimilar to yours, Jess, where I didn't like Ben Nevis for a whole bunch of years, and I continually had Joshua in my ear saying, keep revisiting Ben Nevis, keep trying. Like there are very good ones out there. And then once I had my first good Ben Nevis, it gave me that confidence to keep looking at it and to keep saying, like, okay, maybe. And then, yes, when we got these samples in, and it was kind of like, okay, a 2012 Ben Nevis that's this color.
See, this is where you're wrong. It's not that you had your first good Ben Nevis. It's that your palate finally figured out that all Ben Nevis is good.
Gave in.
Yeah, I'd reserve. I'd hold back on that claim.
Yeah, so I'm really pleased with this, and I can honestly say I'm very happy to pour it and have it in the cabinet. And then I guess we're speeding towards the final 2 drams. Which one should I give you first? I'm going to give you cheeky 20-year-old Glen Grant.
Yeah.
How about that?
I knew which one you were going to hold off on.
How about Dem
It's
Apples?
the same one we would have all held off on. So.
This is done full maturation, so no finishing, resting, or otherwise in here. Full maturation in a first fill bourbon barrel. I find it really frightening when I look at cask dates and it says 2003 and then the age is 20.
Yeah.
2003. Oh, it's going to be like 7 years old. No. So, not too many Glen Grants around and about. And I don't think I've seen too many at this age. I think Glen Grant's really underrated. They put out some consistently brilliant liquid. Mm-hmm. And I am also guilty of not necessarily thinking to reach for a Glen Grant. I guess maybe because we don't see too much of it here in the UK being pushed prominently, is my get out of jail claim to that it doesn't often get trumpeted as nice as it is. It's a really very well considered delicious space cider.
I think one of the things that I like to point out to people about Glen Grant, because I agree with you, it's kind of underrated. It's the only distillery I can think of that has been consistently selling a 5-year-old whiskey into the Italian market for decades because the spirit itself is just so fruity and luxurious, but easy at the same time. And then let it get to 10 years, let it get to 15 years, let it get to 20 years. The fruit remains, it starts getting a bit elegant. Oak rarely overtakes, despite it being sometimes delicate. It seems to stand up to oak pretty well in 20 years in a bourbon barrel. Like, the spirit is holding its own. It's never masked in any way by the cask it's been sitting in.
100%. Yeah. And for us, when people are always saying, what have you not bottled that you would really like to? We had 15-year-old bourbon cask Glen Grant as an answer to that question for a long time. And now here we are with a 20-year-old bourbon Glen Grant. Like, this is so exciting. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see this in SCN livery. It does become more complicated when it's in Jess's markets as to having a bottle of it, but I 100% want to have a bottle of this.
Oh, yes.
Oh, well, I know some places that you could make that happen.
Hey.
I think it's also worth pointing out when you think of Glen Grant, and maybe not being the most obvious choice, I think the fact that it consistently appears in Gordon MacPhail's like mega age statement whiskies tells you the quality and the consistency of the liquid. There's no way it would be making it into its 60s, 70s, 80s if it wasn't solid spirit that could depend on that sort of maturation. And definitely not all distilleries are capable of producing liquid, and certainly a whole bunch of distilleries are not interested in producing liquid that's going to get to those sorts of ages. So the fact that it's a suitable candidate and a successful whiskey that comes out at those ages, I think I definitely know that I'm wrong in not looking to it more often. I've just poured myself a little dram of this while you were talking.
You know.
Oh, the texture on it is remarkable.
We've definitely made notes here about mouth coating, which is something we talk about quite a lot, I think, as whiskey nerds, the texture, what it does to you. And I think that involves having somebody who can get beyond the, it's sharp and it's whiskey and it's, once you've really started falling down this rabbit hole of drinking generously alcoholic spirits, we can start talking about mouth coating and what it's doing to your palate, and you can talk about things like nose texture, I guess, if you subscribe to that school of thought. But it definitely is something we've talked about a lot. We've also got in here pipe tobacco, hints of marzipan, beeswax, which again I think is a texture thing too. Juicy ripe fruits, dehydrated apples. We've made an interesting note in here, which may be a good topic point for the future. On our nose, we've got smells like a whiskey from yesteryear, compote with yellow fruits and summer meadow. And it does. It's got that kind of... Again, that's a funny thing to explain to people, isn't it? Yeah, old school. But what is it that's made the three of us pick it up and go, oh yeah, this is an old school whiskey?
I mean, I think you nailed it, right? It's so difficult to explain that one needs to have experience in drinking old school whiskeys to even understand the reference. And it is an unexplainable reference. It's like trying to tell people what the Matrix is. You kind of have to experience it. Jason, you taught classes on the Matrix, so...
I have, you're correct.
Really?
It's true. Plato's Cave is a natural point of comparison with the Matrix. For me, it's the...
I try to stay away from Plato's Cave. He's like, come to my cave. Nope. I'll stay over here in Fingal's Cave. Anyway, continue, Jason.
It's all shadows in Plato's Cave as well, so you got to be really careful, Joshua. Yeah, for me, sometimes it's a bit of heft. Sometimes it's a certain ruggedness, and it's certainly something we've been grappling with us selling the Ardnamurchan online in the US, and I know you've had it in your markets, Jess. Is trying to describe old school whiskey, and I think a certain ruggedness is something I keep coming back to. And so for me, with the Glen Grant, this beautiful, seemingly delicate, fruity spirit has a certain ruggedness to it and a certain heft to it. And I think that full term good active bourbon maturation kind of gives this wonderful framing to the spirit as well. And for me, that kind of stands up as an older school sense as well. But this is all approximations of what we're getting, right?
Yep.
There's something old school about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right, take us home on your markets, Jess.
Number 6 for 6. I feel like we should have some sort of like game show drum roll. Like 6 for 6. Our final one. So Joshua stole my thunder a little bit. No, he didn't. By saying we are getting access to casks and getting to release things with names of stuff you don't see very often or would have been very difficult for us to access previously. So I am extremely excited to announce one of my consistently top 5 whiskies. We have got a Bowmore. 11-year-old.
Yeah, remarkable.
And it's called Bowmore.
And 11 is an interesting age.
Yeah, it's called Bowmore. It's not an Isla or a mid-Isla or a Queen of the Hebrides. I'm trying to think of other names we've seen for Bowmore. But yeah, it's an actual, says it, front and centre, distilled at Bowmore Distillery. 11-year-old. We've had a cheeky little dalliance with First Fill American Oak Oloroso Hogshead for 39 months. And I am definitely not alone when I say Bowmore is brilliant in bourbon and sherry. And I think it's got that kind of lovely classic juicy sherried note happening here in the smoke.
Yeah.
I can't remember, a long time ago I did a tasting of somebody who described Bowmore as having like this noble smoke, and it's stuck with me. There are certainly plenty of Islay distilleries we can discuss as being very like smoky or earthy or very heavily peated.
Minerally.
Yeah. Something about the idea of like a noble smoke just really, I don't know, it really appeals to me in Bowmore. And I think to me it speaks quite clearly about the smoke is not restrained, but I would say kept in check. There's smoke happening here for sure, but it's not an in-your-face. It's not a young, brash Ardbeg. It's not got that kind of meaty, and I'm going to use that word heft here again, like a Lagavulin. It's, you know, and it's not kind of coaly and a bit citrusy like maybe you'd find in a Kalila. Here we've just got this lovely kind of like fruity smokiness to it. And this is a 2013 Bowmore, so we're definitely back into David Turner's wheelhouse of like tropical, some of those tropical elements that when I've spoken to him, he's deliberately trying to feed back into the spirit. Definitely in this, I got a whole bunch of like mangoes and papayas, which is, you know, the halcyon days of 60s Bowmore's definitely creeping back into the spirit he's putting out. It's funny, when you put this to your nose, it doesn't jump out in your face with the smoke. But again, I've had this sat here for a while now, and it's just all kind of building up in the glass. We've got lovely... this one definitely, I remember on the palate, it's really kind of viscous and rich. We've got lots of dark chocolate, black currants, lingering smoke. What else do we have in here?
I remember the black currants on this, the conversation we had around black currants.
Yeah, there was lots of black currant in this.
Spelling it properly. I think that was the big conversation. That's not how you spell currants, Josh. That's not currently the way how you spell currant.
Oh, hey. So we've got lots of that kind of stuff happening in here. A bit of oatmeal and brown sugar. Yeah, I think this is a really kind of young-ish, quite a playful little Bowmore. I'm really happy with the strength. It's 57.4, so it's got a good chunk happening in it, and if you find it a bit much, you can always dial it back with a bit of water. I think a little bit of water in this really brings out that smoke as well.
I'm very happy with the number of bottles that were yielded by the cask.
307. Of which 265 of them are in my... No, they're not. Yeah, I never thought we'd see the day where we could confidently put out a Bowmore at not horrific pricing and have a decent outturn of it. So this is really exciting for me that we've got a generous, I would say, amount to go around all the markets. I think actually, looking at the bottles, I think this is the largest outturn of all of the release.
It is.
Let me check my number facts. Yes, so the largest outturn we have here from the Bowmore and the Stones of Stenness and the Ben Nevis, they're pretty good. Obviously the Glen Grant, because it's a bourbon barrel, is the lowest at 165, but...
and at 20 years in
20
that barrel.
20 years, of course, yeah. So I feel like we've got a nice little mixture happening here. All Scotland, but I think a really nice diverse bunch. And I'm still massively in love with how these all look in the new bottles. They look very cool, all lined up together.
Great. Yep.
And that was part for me last week, is those new retail liveries are just starting to appear in America.
Creeping in to the US.
And having the new livery for retail on the table with the old retail livery and then the online US livery. And people continually commented on this new sparkly package.
Yeah.
It went over very well. I had one chap at one tasting kind of look sideways at the move to screw cap, and I got to talk through like, no, this isn't your old-fashioned gold screw cap on the top of a cheap blend.
No.
Like this is a good, good feel, good weight, good heft to the screw cap. And then I actually let him hold the screw cap. I let him use it on the bottle, and minds were changed. Yep. He begrudgingly said, okay. And literally he said, okay, in a begrudging manner. And I knew I had won that day.
There you go.
I guess it's a move away from some of the norm, but I think when you see them, especially if you've got a couple of them together, they look so smart. It's very difficult to argue that it's the wrong choice, I think.
Yep. No, people were very, very happy, and I'm very happy with them. I loved showing them off as well.
Yeah,
this is the new livery.
I had lots of lovely compliments from the guys in the bottling hall, who I don't think they're just doing it to try and be nice to me. You know, they say it looks very smart. They love the labels and the colour and the details in the background of it, and they haven't told me they're horrible to work with. So I'm taking that as a personal triumph.
Yeah, and they pour fantastic.
They do.
Yeah.
They have such a nice tight beading. Which, again, the things you never thought you would be looking at getting into the whiskey industry. Like, tight beading on a pour of whiskey and it doesn't run down the side of the bottle. Check. Very happy.
So these will be moving out to retail. We're just starting to process orders. So you'll find us in all the usual places. I will update the social medias once orders have been confirmed. I would hate to make a retailer be like, oh no, we need to buy twice the amount because Jess said it on a podcast. So once I have confirmed orders and when they're going, maybe I should take that tactic actually.
I know, I quite like the sound of that.
Okay, so sales by threatening, blackmail. Okay. Once I know where things are going, I will tell you where they are. As always, there are people overseas asking questions about where can I get these incredible whiskies if I am not in the UK or one of our other markets. And there will be a handful of UK retailers who will be able to facilitate shipping to wherever you are on this planet. Don't know anyone who's doing intergalactic deliveries yet, but I'm sure there'll be someone working on it. So yeah, there'll be all sorts of places. Once I know it's moving to different markets, then absolutely I'll keep you all updated. But if you have questions, you can drop me an email and I will field you in the direction of somebody who will exchange your hard-earned money for delicious whiskies.
What's your email address? Yes.
It is Joshua at
it's Jess spelled INFO.
Yeah. That's the Gaelic pronunciation actually with Jessica. You can find me at Jess at singlecasknation.com, and you can find me on Instagram talking probably less about dogs going forwards than I have done for the last week as Whiskey Jess. You can also get a hold of us through the podcast and info at singlecasknation.com. That's probably enough places to find me, to be honest.
That is a lot.
That's enough.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, with all the global excitement here, and while the paperboy remains awake, we have got exciting news to be delivering. For anyone listening to this episode on the day it drops, this news is for tomorrow. If you're listening to this at some point in the future, this news is for April, does quick math, 18th.
What year?
2024. That's a good addition. You're smart to do that. You are smart to do that. And so, yes, this will be our mid-April launch of 3 casks for Single Cask Nation online in these United States of America. And it's hard to know how to order them, because each one of them is bringing something wonderful and delicious and exciting to the table.
Yeah.
But after hearing so many Scotch whiskies from Jess, we will have a brief intermission with a 4-square 16-year-old that is every part of why 4-square is such a winner. And even the truncated note on the label talks about, this is why we drink rum. It's brown sugar, it's spice, it's warmth. It's just absolutely terrific.
And it has one of my favorite notes, which is that nice Monogani.
Sorry, what?
But
For those people who aren't Joshua, that's Manuka honey.
But, one of the reasons why Foursquare has become so popular in the U.S., now I know it's insanely popular around the world, but there's this note that you get on Foursquare that's really reminiscent of weeded bourbons. It's this sort of high, sweet note. And because it's been matured in Barbados under that, that hot climate, you're getting a lot of wood interaction, a lot of wood interplay. So you get that oaky kick with that light, sweetness going on in the nose, and it just plays so well.
Well, and Jess, you know how important the flavometer is in our Single Cask Nation world. The rich category on this flavometer is an 8.
Oh my goodness. An 8.
An 8, Jess. You know how difficult we have a time going from 7 into 8? This is an 8.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, really stunning. 54.8% alcohol, 251 bottles out of the cask. And it's just exquisite, just absolutely exquisite.
Yeah, and a 16-year-old single cask strength Foursquare for $140 seems like it's right on the money.
It seems okay. I can tell you it's okay. I just took a
I think it
swig
sounds
out the
much
bottle.
better than okay. Who are you, my guy in the Bay Area looking at my screw cap?
And it's 16 years in refill bourbon, though. If you look at the color, you'd say, are you sure that's not maybe a second fill sherry or something? The color's quite dark. Again, that's that Barbadian sun just baking in on the wood, and the spirit just taking a lot of color from the wood.
Well, and talking about colour and casts and expectations, and Jess being with us as we lean into talking about colour for these casts on an audio podcast, is our second cask is the exact same age as our Foursquare. But this is our latest Stones of Stenness in America.
There you go.
And the label says all 16 years in a first fill Pedro Jimenez hogshead. The colour is softer, gentler than one might expect. And one of the things that we've been talking about is not all casks are created equal. And you don't know the life story of that cask before the Stones of Stoneness. Stones of Stoneness? Did I just say that?
The Rolling Stones of Stoneness.
The Rolling Stones of Stones Ness gather no moss.
What? Someone take his mic away from him. Jesus.
A Rolling Stone gathers no moss? You've heard that expression.
Yeah.
I have heard that expression, but the way you put it all together, it was just slightly incoherent. That's all.
Okay. Let's go back to Manuka honey for a moment.
Nice Manuka honey.
So yeah. This is a special little Stones of Stenness. Little bit of spice going on in there. I previewed this at a tasting in San Francisco.
Oh, nice.
And we talked a little bit about the opening nose being a little pickly, a little bit of the Funyuns going on.
Yeah.
But then that note kind of falling into the background, and then the fruit coming to the forefront.
Yep. Yeah.
So it really builds, really develops.
There were a number of people who had asked, is this anything like the 17-year-old Stones of Stenness you did? That was the other sherry one. We did in collaboration with Water of Life Film. And this is definitely in that wheelhouse, but there's certain notes to it, right? Because it's that heavy sherry that comes through. You get some of those pickly notes coming in, maybe some dates and things like that. But there's a certain floral aspect to it that reminds me a bit of Jess's Stones of Stenness that's going to be, Jess, in your markets. And it seems to live like in that world of, yes, there's sherry influence, but the spirit's still there. And there's this floral quality that never got masked despite 16 years in sherry.
Yeah, and checking out the flavometer is saying sweet and earthy, which is nice, right? It's a nice little twist there, and again, just like you said it previously, Jess, and I remember you saying it during our last tasting for the global launch. Sweet heather smoke, right? That's what I'm in search of. That's what I'm looking for around the edges of my glass as well. 170 on these 304 bottles of Stones of Stenness.
Not bad for a 16-year-old full sherry Orkney that's not Scapa.
But is delicious. So, yep, that's coming to the website, which just leaves us.
It leaves us with our second collaboration with our friends, and this is why I broke out my expertly executed Australian accent with the Norse Manukani. It's our second collaboration with Lee and Bree Atwood at Backwoods Distilling.
Yep.
And this is
Yakandanda.
It's another rye whiskey. So those of you in listener land and nation member land may remember the 3-year-old that we did. It was 3 years in a recharred French oak cask, basically an ex-Shiraz cask that had been recharred. Australian
Shiraz.
This time around, what we did is we took 2 backwoods casks that were in recharred American oak, basically ex-Scotch whiskey casks that were recharred. We took those 2 casks, we married them together in the previous release's cask, the French oak casks. Everybody following me here? And we matured that 3-year-old spirit for another year in the French oak. So 3 years in recharred American oak and 1 year in recharred French oak, and that cask held our previous backwoods release. So back to what James Saxon always refers to Single Cask Nation as, those that play within their own cinematic universe. We really wanted to connect a lot of dots with this release.
Yeah, this is another one that I previewed last Friday and then also poured at the Fog City Social. And I was, again, in that attempt to put an elevator pitch in front of somebody and you're trying to convey a lot of information, is I talked about using our original cask as a finishing vessel. And that really resonated with people. Yeah. Like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, you don't hear that a lot. And so sometimes in trying to make the explanation a little clearer, I'll talk about we selected casks 16 and 23 in that new charred oak and put them, or into the recharred oak, and then put them into the finishing vessel that was number 14. Yeah. And then folk are like, okay, now I've got 2 casks in my head that went into a finishing vessel. Yep. And also talking to people about this heritage Australian rye. A grain that had lain dormant in a field for 50 years that then started to grow again and has this wonderful texture and flavour. And then for Lee and the mash bill, including chocolate malt. Yep. And you start to get this wonderful chocolate-covered cherry note. I always tell the truth on this podcast. On the Friday night in tasting, I was doing the intro to this as everyone was holding it and nosing it. And I just happened to look to my right, and one of the attendees was making like an almighty face, like a bulldog chewing a wasp, right? He's just like, what? And I looked at it and I paused my intro and I said, everything okay here? And he went, yes. I have no idea what's happening in my mouth right now, but I'm loving it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it was, his face was saying otherwise, and then he continued to taste. And then I saw him again the next day and poured him again the next day. And everyone who tasted this paused. It's like I'd said previously about being at Jack Rose at Premier Drams last October of 23. And whenever I poured Westward for people, they would pause And they would go, whoa, what just happened there? What was that? This did exactly that Friday and Saturday in San Francisco.
There's just so many different things going on. It's 60% alcohol, like you had said. It's this species of rye that had lying dormant. No one hadn't used it in years. Some of it's unmalted, some of it's malted. Then they add in the chocolate malt into the mash, and you just start adding in all of the bits and bobs. And yes, I'm glad that what we aim to do, bottle something that was wholly unique, is being received that way. Yeah. And speaking of higher numbers on the flavometer, for Rich we have 6, for Earthy we have 6.
That's a big one for Earthy.
For Earthy, yeah, for sure. And 2 for Floral. I kind of like that delicate floral note that's coming through on there as well. So
very well received. Yeah. I can't hold it. I can't look at the label. I can't pour a little taste while we're discussing because I took my full sample bottle to San Francisco and poured the whole bloody lot.
So, and this one goes for
$95.
Yeah, $95. Solid price for this rye whiskey. That is just right. Why do we drink whiskey? Why are we an independent bottler? So we're looking for new flavors. We're looking to release new flavors, and here we are. Right. This is. I like it when we can confidently say, "Yep, we've done our job here."
Well, and look at what all 3 of us are talking about today. There's Bowmore out there. There's Stones of Stenness, which is an Orkney distillery not known as Scapa. There's Foursquare in there, right? Mm-hmm. Like, these are the big names that people come and ask for. Mm-hmm. And then there's also Inchgour, that IBs are responsible for putting that out there. Yep. This is Backwoods from Yakindanda in Victoria, Australia, right? There's the Glen Grant that isn't on as many radars as it should be. Mm-hmm. I think we've got a nice balance going on here. Yep. Partly give the public what they're asking for within reason, but then also get them to look at other offerings. And I'm very proud of putting in that work. And I especially love it when the nation engage with us on that other side as well and say, oh, wow, I do like Inchgour now. Wow, who knew? Didn't know Inchgour coming in the door. Now I like it. Excellent. That's why I'm here. So that makes me very happy.
Really quickly, when it comes to Inchgour, I think of our friend John Kay, right? That's his distillery. When he hears we release an Inchgour, he goes a little bonkers. When we release a Glenbergie, Michael Nolan goes a little bonkers, right? It's nice.
Absolutely.
It's nice when we can bottle some casks with, friends and nation members in mind and say, yeah, we got you covered.
And then the number of people who pointed at my Dalyuen in retail that's dark as night. And they're like, can I have a pour of that one? And I would pick it up. Dalyuen. That's how you pronounce that? Of course, how it's spelled. And Dalyuen. And so I think that goes a little bit with the territory as well, as there's a bit of nervousness when you simply don't know how to say the distillery name. But then once you do know, you can be the person telling your friends. You can be the one turning on people at your tasting to a new distillery. I think that's part of the beauty of this as well. Really what makes nation members so special.
Yep. There you go. So be on the lookout for all of Jess's whiskeys. And, we will be talking about it on our Facebook group. If you're a nation member and you're not part of our private Facebook group, please do check that out. If you're not a nation member, please become one. It's free. Just go to our website and you can sign up. It's just a matter of creating an account, and then we'll let you into that group. Check Jess's Instagrams, and then Jason, as you had mentioned before, the last 3 whiskeys that we the last 3 bottlings we talked about, our Foursquare, our Stones of Stenness and Backwoods. That goes live 18th of April, 2024 at 12 noon Eastern, and that is on our website only. We'll be coming back with a bit more news on our next retail release, but
Indeed.
we've been talking about retail release number 10 that just came out. It has 4 different bottlings on it. So
Indeed.
So we don't need to talk about that here. I think that may have exhausted our news. Has that exhausted our news?
It
Sounds like it.
has for me. Sounds like it has for Jess too.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe it's exhausted the podcast.
I think it may have exhausted the... I feel exhausted.
I think we've done what we came here to do.
Well,
Have you done what you came here to do, Jess?
Yeah, absolutely. I've told people about some whiskies. I have set up in my mind how you and I are going to swap some Glen Grant Backwoods transition thing happening here.
Here we go. Now we're cooking.
Yeah. I'm really thirsty now. And as ever, having talked about tasting notes, kind of ready for something to eat.
there you go.
Maybe some
Me
oatcakes
too.
with cracked black pepper.
Oh, maybe a little sharp cheddar over the top of that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I just got a new cheddar that was washed in green chartreuse. It's phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Sorry, did I make you?
We're not going to top that, so.
Yeah. Maybe that's what we need to do. We need to start doing cheese and whiskies.
Oh yeah,
Thought for a future.
Listen, the last thing that I want to tell people before we get out of here, there was one last bit of news. On Monday, April 22nd at 8 p.m. Eastern, Jason, you and I are going to be welcoming Simon Brooking.
A gentleman whose company I enjoyed in San Francisco last week.
There you go. Most people, when they think of Simon Brooking, they think of Lafroig. He's been the
Very much.
Lafroig guy for years. They may think of Bamor, but
Indeed.
this time around we are going to be talking specifically Ardmore Distillery. And it's a distillery that rarely gets talked about. And we have a 25-year-old on our website. So that will be live on the Single Cask Nation YouTube channel. It will also go live on our Facebook group, the one that I mentioned previously. And again, that's 8 p.m. Monday, April 22nd, and 8 p.m. Eastern time. So until then, if you've got questions, maybe there's questions about this new transition into our new work life that didn't get answered on this podcast, you can reach out to us, questions at One Nation Under Whiskey, info@singlecasknation.com. If you want to be really nice and give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, we would love that. And I guess that's it. I guess I'm going to raise my glass to you guys and to the listeners. Did we miss anything?
You guys.
All right, Chunk. You're going to live with me now. Those are I do a pretty good sloth, don't I?
You're fully committed with the facial expressions and everything.
How I pull my left eye all the way down to the middle of my face.
Amazing.
And just really beef up. Yeah. Anyway.
2 bottles saying cheers.
2 sample bottles saying cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh, Jess, yours sounds like a bicycle ring. Jing, jing, jing.
That's what I need to get from my desk.
A bicycle ring.
Cheers. Ring, 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 ring.
That's perfect.